Good evening and welcome to the 23rd of October workshop for your Crestview City Council. At this time, I ask that you would turn off any electronic devices you may have so we can have no interruptions during our meeting. Thank all of you for being here, all 3 or 4 of you. That's fine. That's fine. I'm sure more will come on as the evening goes on. There'll be more people coming in. There's the mayor now. Welcome. And I'm sure, especially after this, we're having an open house. So I just know we're just going to be flooded here any moment now. I'm pretty sure. But wait a minute. I need to ask what's going on with the balloons.
Government week.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, well, good. Good. Anyway, I just want to make sure you understand the topic for this evening is property management. We're going to talk about the building code, exciting things like that. I'm just telling you that because if you hear to talk about marijuana and RVs and campers and everything, you can do that at the end of the meeting, but at the beginning of the meeting, any comments have to be focused on the agenda for the workshop. So at this time, I'm going to ask Councilman Hayes if he would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
May we stand, please? Face the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're not going to use the sign-in device tonight because we don't have any voting at the workshop. So be it noted that all the council members are here, so we have a quorum. We also have the mayor, the city clerk, we have a city attorney, our department heads, and you are special guests. So thank you all for being here. So at this time, the meeting is officially opened. And gentlemen, do you have any changes to the agenda? I didn't think so. All right, so we're going to move right on to public opportunity, which means anybody in the audience who wants to talk to us tonight, anything to do with building code, code enforcement, that kind of stuff, at this time would be the time you come up and approach us. Anybody in the audience like to speak to us at this time about the one item we have on the agenda? Okay, we're going to move right along then, and we're going to move on to the property maintenance code, starring our growth management director. Now, Teresa, this is going to be one of those times where I'm not going to be rushing you like I always do, right? I'm always, we have, as you know, we have an open house after this meeting. We didn't schedule it to 8 o'clock because we thought this would be a long and arduous meeting. It may or may not be. And what we'll do, if we end the meeting early, we'll probably take a potty break, and then we'll go into the open house, and we'll just keep it open until people quit coming in because they'll be here by the hordes, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. But anyway, the floor is all yours.
In the advertisement, I put it immediately after the workshop. And at least by 9 o'clock.
Okay.
We're actually just going to do broad general introduction and get some discussion coming back so that we can fuel which way we would like to move with this. It's going to be quite an education. As you know, the law of building regulation is grounded in the police power of the state. And the power is the source of all authority to enact building regulations. So, police power is the power of the state that legislates general welfare for its citizens. It enables passage of laws such as property maintenance code, and it is from the police power delegated by the state legislature to local governments that they are able to enact building regulations. And if you, in the first level that you learn in code enforcement, you're introduced to constitutional law, especially your 14th Amendment, which allows for due process. Your Fifth Amendment, which allows for just compensation. Your Fourth Amendment to the Constitution is the right of entry. And the 14th actually covers equal protection there. Constitutional law, therefore, is the key governing factor for code enforcement activities. And the United States Constitution sets overall boundaries for the actions that government officials can take. Now, in the state of Florida, statute chapter 162 is actually the law for the code enforcement. 98% of code enforcement officials and officers in the state of Florida actually abide by chapter 162. Well, as a matter of fact, the city of Crestview has adopted chapter 162, and that is what is shown in our chapter of our code, chapter 24, code enforcement citations. So that all involves chapter 162. So to think you have to go study a whole new chapter in the Florida statutes, we already have a good understanding of that now. It really needs to be redone and updated because it maintains the process for issuance of citations, and it is actually no longer used. It allows for the issuance, the payment of the civil penalty, the filing with the county court, and actually gives a schedule of penalties amounts. However, be it I do not know why, these were actually, instead of going on and taking its process through the court, was actually brought before the city council. And in that way, then the city council actually relieved the citation that was issued. So it was not followed by its process, so therefore, eventually it was actually dropped because there was no backing from the council or the board in order to enact the citations or to carry the citation to a successful conclusion. So in this process, we shall also be realigning chapter 24, and that would be in the aims of adopting Florida Statutes 162 in its entirety, and actually it abide with its yearly updates. Since chapter 24 was updated in 2006, it might be more efficient for the city to adopt something that continues and is adopted by the state and updated every year. So, but before we get too far, I'm just going to step you through the maintenance code. That way, if you have questions, if you have input, if you do not understand, we need to get some conversation going so we know how thoroughly we're going to initiate the International Property Maintenance Code.
If I could just stop you a minute. Ordinarily in city council meetings, we wait for a presentation and I ask you to hold the questions, but there's going to be a lot of information here in order to get things going. If you have a question during the presentation, just go ahead and raise your hand. I recognize you. That way we won't forget it because it could go on for a while. Okay? All right.
Okay. Everybody has their full copy of their maintenance. Your book that looks like this. This is thank you, Mr. Hayes.
I'll memorize that one, so I don't have to.
You
write
already
it.
got this one? Okay, very good. Okay, and the other half too. Okay. We're very proud of it. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to secure the very cream of the crop out of the maintenance code that applies to the city of Crestview. So, we'll begin with chapter 1, and it is mainly concerned with the due process. And as I,
Question.
Go ahead, Mr. Plucker.
Teresa, before we get involved with this, you mentioned a moment ago that the actions of the city council acted on this. When did this transpire?
back in 2000s, it started in 2006 and was faded out by 2010, 2011. The issuance of citations,
Yes.
yes.
I know
It
there was
was-
lots of controversy back then.
There was a lot of controversy there, yes, sir. And it is inefficient for the city to actually pass something that they're not going to enforce. If you're going to spend the money to allow the officers to proceed with what they need to do in the field, the mountain of paperwork it takes to bring it before fruition within issuance of the citation and the instigation for it into the court, only for it to be intercepted by the council and released. You spend a vast amount of money preparing it, and then there's no, it doesn't come to fruition. The property is still out of compliance, or the building is still unsafe, and yet there's no teeth. If the council releases it at that point, there's no teeth to force the property owner to put it in a safe and condition. So that it should not, when the code official issues out a citation, it should follow its route through the court system, because that's what your code enforcement is based on. It's based on a series of laws. And if as you go through the process, and they're still found to be lacking or uncooperative, or if there's still a dilapidated building of which they can do nothing about, it needs to be handled in the legal realm. It doesn't need to be dismissed by the council. I mean, if in reality, if it cost you $1,800 to process this person to the meeting, and immediately you release it, it's cost you $1,800 worth of wages and costs for equipment and whatever there, and you do not have the property improved, or the violation, you don't have it brought into a realm where it would be publicly safe or be in the best interests of the citizens. So what you would do is let it take its legal realm. It would flow through the courts. They would be mandated to take care of the violation, whether it's a burnout piece of property, whether it's something that has all its windows and doors missing, whatever the violation is. The legal system would then allow for that to be either brought into compliance and rendered safe, or demolished and debris hauled away.
Well, my question, then to get to the bottom line, is there any of this data that we have in this folder already had legislative action by this council that's incorporated in this folder you gave us?
Yes, sir. Y'all have adopted, recently, you adopted Section 108 in your building, and the 108 is actually the unsafe structures. Mm-hmm. Remember, it was in your building and inspection department ordinance. I can't remember exactly which one that was, but it was before you. It was added into it, and just here recently, because when they added it in, they left out a sentence. We actually incorporated that sentence just a few months ago. And it was Section 108, unsafe structures.
Well, I get a different opinion. All right, the last several months, Doug, for one, has asked a question. We had nothing in-house that we had anything with teeth in it.
That's right, sir. Because all 108, when it reflies over to your building official,
Right.
That's a different action from a code official. A building official is simply securing your building. Now, your code official, as we travel through this, you will see has a different realm of duties and tasks
Totally.
that he will be able to work with. And he will primarily, and our goal would be for him to primarily be working with your blighted communities and your buildings that are in disarray and disrepair, and somewhat even structurally dangerous. So that's the reason we would like our code official to have the qualifications similar to a structural engineer. And that way they can give a viable condition for that.
Well, I'll have more questions later, but I'll rest at this time. Mr.
Okay,
President.
thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, Mr.
This-
Hayes.
this
Mr. Hayes,
also-
I'm sorry, Mr. Hayes was first. Next.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, mine's just, something that I think we need to take care of. We're referencing to a male only when we say he.
Oh,
And we
I'm
need to say
sorry,
He or she. That's,
officer
And it's.
or official.
Yeah, and it was in here too, where it says
Right.
he, but we should make a reference to, so it's neutral.
Perfect.
That's the only thing
Okay.
you kind of like to say.
In here somewhere, it actually does the gender, where that it lets you know if it's referred to as he, it's male. It also references female, or I can't put my finger on it right now, but it's in here where that it clarifies if it says he, it means he or she. If it says her, it means her or him. So it's clarified in, I think, in the definitions maybe, but it's in there. Like I say, it's a work in progress, raw work.
Mr. Fairclough had a question. Would
Ms.
you pull your
Gailey,
mic down, please, Doug? There you go. Thank you.
Ms. Gailey, 108.1.5, dangerous structure or premises. Does premises include the entire property or just the curtilage? And does it also include vehicles that have been sitting on concrete blocks for the last 15 years and refrigerators with doors on them still lying in the yard? Does it include all that when it says that, or premises?
Premises, yes, and actually, our present code enforcement officers addressed whiteware, and which is the open appliances and all. They currently address that.
Okay.
Vehicles.
Unsecured properties, all that kind of stuff?
Now, they can't go onto the properties. That's what you're giving your official the right to do, the right of entry.
Okay. I'm talking generally what the city has the right to do, not the particular individual.
Okay, the city has a right to be in the right of way. We can't send a regular officer, or we call them officers because they have been trained.
And you also call them enforcement when there was no way to enforce it.
Right.
Because that was a title somebody picked out some years ago and called it. I think it should have a new title, and I'm going to be bringing that to you, because it's misleading for people to hear code enforcement when it is simply more community preservation, or their duties are very specific, and it is written in your code what they are, and they can deal with overgrowth, and they can deal with abandoned vehicles. They can deal with vehicles that are parked in the right of way. They alert the officers for that. They alert the building official for unsafe structures, but they have no right of entry on the property to investigate an unsafe structure. If they can see it from the roadway, they can take a picture of it and turn it into the building official, who, once you adopted 108, actually has right to condemn an unsafe structure.
Is there any way we could combine both those jobs?
To combine them together,
it's kind of redundant to have one city official out there saying, I'm sorry, I can't go on the property. All I can do is look at it, and I can determine that those boarded up windows and doors have unsafe conditions on the inside, when the other part of the city, another department or another official can go in and check it and condemn it.
They're gonna be working together in one department. It's just like, they're going to be, the existing officers will be taking care of what they take care of now. And they've handled, last year it was about nearly 12,000 cases that they handled successfully of the overgrowth, the appliances that they've had removed, just whatever they're called for that they do that's under their realm. If you feel like a person that would be the classification and the training and the education of a code official who will carry a greater salary, you would want to utilize them in the investigation of the structures is the structure sound? Is it worth repair? And you would investigate his experience, time, and expertise in the worst case scenario. You wouldn't pay that gentleman or lady to go out and say, this is overgrowth. You need to facilitate getting your lawn taken care of, and this is your notice, and we're going to notice you again in 10 days. See what I mean? I have officers at a lesser level, and I want an official at an upper level.
Just as long as, if we adopt this, as long as we have somebody that can enter the property.
Yes. He will have to, he has a certain process that he has to go through for right of entry. But he or she will be able to handle that.
Okay.
And also, your officers, existing officers, will have someone they can relate to daily. If there's a question or they see something that might be an unsafe structure or whatever, they can communicate directly with him or her daily. So it'll be an officer communicating with an official anytime they need to, not having to wait on the building official who is out doing the building inspection work and the certifications of buildings himself, and have to wait till he can respond to them.
All right,
So
thank you.
it'll make a more streamlined process.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, we ready to start? Okay. Let's see how much of it we can skip. Okay, we're going to call this the Crestview, City of Crestview Property Maintenance Code, and hereinafter we'll just call it this code or the code. And it should apply to all existing residential and non-residential structures and all existing premises. It shall constitute minimum requirements and standards for premises, structures, equipment, facilities for light, ventilation, space, heating, sanitation, protection from the elements, life safety, safety from fire and other hazards, and for safe and sanitary maintenance. The responsibility of the owners, the operators, and the occupants, the occupation of existing structures and premises, and for administration, enforcement, and penalties. Okay, and the intent of this code is to secure and ensure public health, safety, and welfare, and so much as they are affected by continuing occupancy and maintenance of structures and premises.
Mr. President,
Yeah, go ahead, Mr.
I don't know if this question should be from Ms. Teresa or our council, but the scope under section 101 general, 101.2, it says the provisions of this code shall apply to all existing residential and non-residential structures and all existing premises, period. Now, I know that the title of it is City of Crestview Property Maintenance Code. So in reading 101.2, are we to assume it's Crestview, or should it be stated in there inside the confines of city limits of Crestview?
Well, it'd probably be better if it was stated. One thing I want to point out as we go into this is the most important thing you gotta do is you gotta provide, anytime you're trying to condemn property or whatever you're trying to do, you gotta provide them the right to appeal and to get into the court system if they want to. If you don't, they're going to the court system.
Okay, well then I'm going to suggest, Ms. Teresa, that it say as stated, but include within the city limits of Crestview.
I would offer that in the general introduction, that it be qualified that the entire code is relevant only to the jurisdiction of the city of Crestview.
That'll work.
Not in this particular paragraph, but in the introduction and the opening page. We haven't gotten that far, but it would clarify the jurisdiction, limits, and give you a few more qualifiers than we could fit in just.
Well, any reasonable person would know that's what we're talking about, but there are little nitpicky lawyers that are gonna pick that out.
That's why we're building that introduction right now, and it's about 3 pages long. So, okay, I'm not gonna, sake of time and all, I'm not gonna read the generalized unless y'all so determine it. I just would like to hit the ones that are pretty relevant, or that you might have some type of comment. If I skip one that you have a comment for, just please stop us. And 102.1, it's we have qualified that if there's a conflict between a general requirement and a specific requirement, the specific one shall govern. If there's a difference occurring in the provisions of this code and the reference standards, the provisions of this code will apply. Where there's a specific case and different sections of the code with different requirements, the most restrictive will govern.
Teresa, would you give me an example where there might be a conflict between a general requirement and a specific requirement?
In our code now, that there exist avenues where take fencing or around our stormwater ponds. In one area, you have areas that don't really affect and that lane that in particular as being anything more than you fence it. Well, if you look over where they actually have the details of a stormwater pond, it means it's a specific slope, a specific fence, and it's all specific there. So anybody just reading under one version of it may say, I may or may not have to put up a fence. Whereas in the other criteria, you have specific details of when and where you would be doing that.
Okay.
And as we bring before you the revised Code of Ordinances, we're hoping to clear that up, and where it has to be mentioned, it will actually have a reference back to your more specific.
Thank you.
So, okay, maintenance of equipment, systems, devices, safeguards required by this code or as previously regulated, or a code which the structure or premises was constructed, altered, repaired, shall be in maintenance for good working order. And so there's different requirements here that it's going into. It's not intended to provide a basis of removal of either the fire prevention or your building safety as designed by your building official. So it's not designed to replace anything. This is designed to be able to have the official determine if this is truly up to regulations. Okay. Let me just
Yes,
put it
Mr.
this way, is
Fox.
there any questions in chapter 102 about,
Mr. Cox has a question.
Yes, what you just said relative to fire protection and specifically, so all of NFPA codes are still enforceable by
still enforced?
building and
Yes,
fire
sir.
department?
The Florida Building Code and your fire prevention are still major codes that must be adhered to. This is simply means that our code in here is not going to supersede any of those codes. It's not going to allow a person to supersede that. It's, they're going to work well with them.
Okay, one more statement in relation to that. Towards the end of your document, it references International Fire Code, but I had to question, hey, is NFPA 33
It's,
still the National Fire Protection Code?
yes, sir.
The basis?
Yes,
Which
sir.
is the basis for Florida's state code?
We took this from the IPMC, so therefore they utilize their codes. What we're doing is purging all of their code and their wordings out. That was just one that they happened to miss. And there's one in the appeals process where they mentioned it's the Board of Adjustment. In the city of Crestview, it's not the Board of Adjustment. So we have so marked that. 102 continues just with the application of other codes, existing remedies, that it will be done in a professional manner. Historical boards, historical buildings will still be allowed their historic designation and will not be intruded upon unless somehow it's deemed to be unsafe. So, and there are ways of securing historical buildings and not lose their historical classifications. We have different references to code and standards. And also it takes into effect that there are other laws that may be state, federal, or local. If we go into section 104, the duties of the code official, they're going to direct and enforce the provisions of the code. They will have the authority to render interpretations of the code, adopt policies and procedures in order to clarify the application of its provisions. And such interpretations, policies, and procedures shall be in compliance with the intent and purpose of the code. Such policies and procedures shall not have an effect of waiving a requirement specifically provided in the code. The inspections, the code official shall make all the required inspections or shall accept reports or inspections of approved agencies or individuals. All reports of such inspections will be in writing and be certified by the responsible officer of such approved agency or by the responsible individual. The code official is authorized to engage in such expert opinion as deemed necessary to report on unusual technical issues that might arise, subject to the approval of the Growth Management Director. What should there come an occasion that the official requires expertise from maybe an asbestos consideration, and they may need to contact specialists in that field. We would then bring it before the council and required funding for that particular mechanism. So you will, before they involve any experts that might have a costly fee with them, we will be requesting that from the council.
Teresa, after the process here, I might be jumping ahead a little bit, but we talked about the possible need of a magistrate, of someone to appeal above the building official, the code official. Where are we on that process?
The special magistrate, what we had discussed was where we have our Board of Adjustment and we have our Code Enforcement Board, that in a lot of places are having a special magistrate, which is usually a retired judge, that will come in and actually hear the cases. They can hear it quicker. They can render a more precise decision and a more along the code decision than many of our boards can. We have a very difficult time retaining enough members to form a board. We have vacancies on our Board of Adjustment now, which we may use them once. We may use them once or twice a year. We may use them once in 3 or 4 years. So it's hard to retain a board when they serve for 2 years and they've never heard a case. And it's hard for them to study enough of the code and the law to know. So a special magistrate would have a great advantage over that. We do not even have a functioning code enforcement board present. We haven't had a need for a code enforcement board since early 2013. Our officers work with the violators to render it in compliance rather than to bring them to a board. They work with them in most every avenue, and they monitor them, that they bring, if it's a unsafe area, if you have an old refrigerator on your doorstep, if you have abandoned cars, they work with these people diligently until that is actually remedied, or something that it comes to where it is completely, they either move the car, if they are unable to take care of their yard. We put them in contact with agencies that actually help elderly people maintain their yards. There's volunteer groups that will help them. Or we just work with them or their family until the violation is taken care of. And if it's taken care of with diligence and information and training in 3 months, you couldn't even convene a code enforcement board in the 3 months' time. You have to place the board, you have to advertise, you have legal work to do in staffing it and preparing the documentation. There's procedures for it. And it's just more efficient if our officers help the violators, and they're very successful. As a matter of fact, I think we have only less than 10 cases that are not completely taken care of. So whether it's picking up trash or other avenues like that, if it's something they can work with the people and take care of, there's no need to drag and go to the expense of a code enforcement meeting. Not to mention that the staff has to have a legal, the board has to have a legal, and the number of hours that it takes to put into a board of adjustment or a code enforcement. Yes, sir, a magistrate would be a welcome person, and I think they would be an asset to the workings of the city. And no, sir, I haven't found him yet, or her.
Mr. President,
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Bryant.
alluding to the comment you just made, doesn't our counselor have the expertise to render a decision in some of these things here? I think he does.
I advise the Board of Adjustment, and that's included in my retainer. I don't
Yeah.
charge for it above the retainer.
But what I see happening, we're gonna need a counselor for every department back in this building. But right now, I understand from some professional people, we have no one works for this city on the enforcement ladies now that has the knowledge, expertise, certification, qualification to render a decision as an enforcement officer with all the data in this right here.
That's what your code official will be qualified for.
But we do not have one on board today.
No, sir, we just
Right.
received funding on October 1st.
Right, okay.
So, and in order to facilitate that officer can work to his limits, to what he knows, and can get it enforced and be able to bring the tough cases that are going to have to be taken care of. They will need a legal. And in the Board of Adjustment, Mr. Hawley is the board's attorney.
True.
Mr. Shirley is the staff's attorney. So, and that works the same way in your code enforcement. You have to have a board attorney, you have to have a staff attorney. So,
Well, you would have that same situation if you had a magistrate.
Right, exactly.
But even if you got a magistrate, you still gonna have to have a appellate route up from his decision. He's not making it as a court, he's making it as a magistrate or by the city.
well, when we fully have this adopted, we're going to utilize Section 162, which allows for appeals, and it allows the egregious party, including the local government body, may appeal the final administrative order of the enforcement board to the circuit court. Such an appeal shall not be a hearing, and Mr. Hawley, I'm not sure exactly what this means. Hearing, D-E-N-O-V-A, N-O-V-O, de novo? But shall be limited to a pilot review of the record created before the enforcement board. An appeal shall be filed within 30 days of execution of the order for it to be appealed.
Yeah, well, what that means is they can't bring up any evidence that wasn't presented at the hearing, and they're looking at it from a standpoint of where the decision made it here and complies with the law and the facts that introduced it here.
So it will have a method of appeal, so. And this officer will do, they will do inspections. They have the proper identification, the proper uniforms. They will have notices and orders. Department records, they will have to maintain official records and provide that into the public records. Approvals, it says whenever it's practical, because involving the carrying out of the provisions of this code, the code of officials shall have the authority to grant modifications for individual cases upon application of the owner or owner's representative, provided the code enforcement shall first find the special individual reason that makes the stricter letter of this code impractical and the modifications in the compliance with the intent and purpose of the code, and that such modification shall not be lessened, does not lessen health, life, fire safety requirements. The details of the action granting the modification shall be recorded and entered into the departmental files. And that's kind of, major modifications is what your Board of Adjustment does. So if you have a very small modification, this paragraph is allowing that official to grant that minor modification in order to bring the violation, I won't say it was a violation, it'll bring it, the need can be taken care of by the property owner. If they go out and this dilapidated building needs to be done and in results, the time frame is given as 90 days. Well, 60 days into this, the property owner has a car wreck and can't proceed with this. Is it okay for your code official to grant an extra 30, 60 days in that 90-day time frame. That would be a minor modification. So, that's something for you to think on, whether or not if you want to place a different limitation on it, a different restriction. It simply means that in the end result, it will be concluded. Whatever the agreed process was, whether it was to destroy the building, to move the building, to change debris, to board up the building, that will be concluded, but something has made it impossible for it to be at the letter of the initial charge, which would have been a certain amount of time or a certain amount of process, but it would still be concluded in a satisfactory manner. So as y'all are studying over, just think about how you would like that process to go. And minor modifications are nothing that's out of the ordinary. Alternate methods and equipment. It says the provisions of this code is not intended to prevent the installation of any material or to prohibit any method of construction not specifically prescribed by this code, provided that such alternative has been approved. The alternative material or method of construction shall be approved where the code official finds the proposed design to be satisfactory and complies with the intent and the provisions of this code, and the material, method, or work offered for the purpose intended, at least the equivalent to the prescribed in the code, quality, strength, effectiveness, fire resistant, durability, and safety. And that involves sometimes a lot of your green materials are requiring that as an alternative method. Required testing, and it goes into the testing and the test methods, test reports. Down here at 105.4, it introduces the used material and equipment. The use of recycled or previously used material that meet requirements of this code for new materials is permitted. Materials, equipment, devices shall not be reused unless elements are in good repair or have been reconditioned and tested when necessary, placed in a good and proper working condition, and approved by your building official. So, violations, unlawful acts, they will be given a notice of violation, and your prosecution of violation. Any person failing to comply with a notice served, as in 107, will be prosecuted according to Chapter 162. Florida statutes, or any other method allowed by Florida statutes and the Code of Laws and Ordinance of the City of Crestview, Florida. And it goes on also about the abatement of the violation and the penalties. 107, notices and orders. This just standardizes how the notice will get out to the public. It just determines that they will be in writing, that it will describe exactly what the real estate enough for they'll know what they're talking about. It'll include a statement of the violations and why the notice is being issued, include a correction order allowing reasonable time to make the repairs and improvements required to bringing the dwelling unit or structure into compliance of the provisions of the code. They will inform the property owner the right to appeal. It will include a statement of a right to file a lien in accordance to Section 106.3, which is 106.3 is actually one of the prosecutions of the violation.
It's not anything about that in 106.3, I noticed that. There's nothing in 106.3 referring
To the lien?
to a lien.
The lien is actually within chapter 162. Florida statutes,
Yeah.
162, it's in that. Okay.
Mr. President,
Yeah, Mr. Fairwell.
back to 106.1, unlawful acts. It says it shall be unlawful for a person. And then down in 106.3, you say any person. Wouldn't it be better to say in 106.1, instead of for a person, say for any person?
Well, it's for a person, firm, or corporation.
Any person, firm, or corporation.
Any person.
I know that's picky, but. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah, Teresa, maybe I missed this, but how do we ensure receipt of the notice? Should we
Those
be
are
sending
mail.
certified mail?
They're always sent certified mail.
Well, the part should
Every-
state, it should be stated in there, notified, be in writing and sent by certified mail.
Okay, you're,
It's in here.
Otherwise, I don't see it in 107.2.
May not be there, but
all notices and procedures by 1083,
Okay.
which,
103.
1083, let's see if it's listed in there.
Should be posted in a conspicuous place.
I think it would need to go in 1083. But that is, in 162, I think it actually, we have to send everything certified mail. Every letter that is sent
I
out in
understand
code
that, but I'm
enforcement.
just saying that I think we ought to put that in there.
Okay,
Otherwise,
In
we
the
have no way
form-
of knowing that we officially received it.
yeah. Okay, that 103 is actually place garden. I think it's in there somewhere, but in all the revision, it may have been revised. But that is how the typical communication with the code enforcement.
One oh seven, Mr. President.
Yes, go ahead.
107.3, it
Yeah, it
just
says-
says method of service, and it shall be deemed basically, short-term, basically whatever's in chapter 162.
Yeah, chapter
for that.
162, that is keep in mind, chapter 162 is your code enforcement law in the
I'm saying,
Florida
I don't know what
statutes.
says it in there.
Yeah, you don't have, now you gotta go find 162. And I
Yeah.
agree with you saying.
Well, that-
It'll be a short insert in there.
I was gonna say, we will add it in there and, spelled out in detail, and there would be no, and then they wouldn't have to know 162 either. Okay, there's unauthorized, tampering, which means, that there's a charge if somebody goes around, because, they do put a notice on the property, and that's if anybody tampers with that. Penalties for noncompliance with orders or notice shall be set forth in chapter 162 of the Florida statutes and the code of ordinances for the city of Crestview. Transfer of ownership, it will be unlawful for the owner of any dwelling unit or structure that has received a compliance order or not, or upon whom a notice of violation has been served, to sell, transfer, mortgage, lease, or otherwise dispose of a dwelling unit or structure to another until the provisions of the compliance order or notice of violation has been complied with, or until the owner shall first furnish the guaranteed transferee, mortgagee, lessee a true copy of the compliance order or notice violation by the code official, and shall furnish to the code official a signed notarized statement that the grantee, transferee, mortgagee, lessee acknowledges the receipt of such compliance order or violation and are fully accepting the responsibility without condition of making corrections or repairs required by such compliance notice and notice of violation. Simply means that they just can't sell it and it becomes somebody else's problem without letting them know. Now, 108 is the unsafe structures and equipment, and we went through this pretty fully. It covers the unsafe structures, equipment, structures that are unfit for human occupancy, unlawful structures, dangerous structures or premises, closing of vacant structures, and the authority to disconnect service utilities. It also allows for the notice, the passing of the notice for the official to prohibit occupation, abatement methods, and to a record to be into the official records. So, 109, emergency measures. If there's imminent danger, it's going to allow the opinion of the code official. If there's a collapsing building, a structure that endangers life, or any part of the structure has fallen, if there's might be in potential dangers because of some sort of fumes, vapors, toxic gases, any of those, the code official shall be authorized to empower an order that will require the occupants to vacate the premises. And usually that would be in conjunction, a lot of times, with the fire department too. So they will be working closely with our fire department because the fire department and the building official both get involved in emergency measures. If there's some sort of temporary safeguards that can be taken by the code official, if he deems that necessary. Also, it comes to the matter of if necessary for public safety, that the code official may temporarily close structures and close or order the authority having jurisdiction to close sidewalks, streets, public ways, places adjacent to unsafe structures, and prohibit the same from being utilized. That means he would need to work with the mayor, correct, for closing the streets?
Yes.
Okay. Emergency repairs and also the cost of emergency repairs. If there's emergency work that must be done and the city must pay for it, there is legal counsel of the jurisdiction shall institute proper action in order to recover those costs. And they will actually gives a way for a hearing either to an appeals board or if we decide to go with a code enforcement board, a nuisance abatement board, or whatever board that we decide upon the conclusion of creating our rules and regulations, whatever board is going to be necessary to facilitate that. Demolition, you're giving order that he can put up notice and orders and actually demo buildings, and it actually gives about your salvage materials. We have gone through section 1011, which was what I read to you from 162 for the appeals. 112 is a stop work order, which it gives him the authority to actually stop the work. Chapter 2 is simply they're simply definitions. If we run through 103,
Teresa, I want to go back to, I want to go back to demolition because,
demolition.
you know, the presentation we had at the last city council meeting, which showed us the condition of many of our buildings, which is embarrassing, but it's true. And we're on the road to trying to correct that. But my question would be, it says we can demolish a building, and I would like Mr. Hawley's opinion. What would happen? We have buildings like that already. The roofs are caving in. And if we just go in and demolish the building, what kind of liability are we going to be in?
I think the thing that comes first is that the code official orders them to do that. And then if they don't do it, it's when we would get involved in demolishing it. Of course, you're gonna have an appeal probably to whoever's gonna hear the appeal, and it'll probably end up in court unless the person can't afford to do that.
There's a legal process for allowing the demolition of a building. It's pretty in-depth, and there are strict rules and regulations to that. It's not like a code official can lightly say, that building don't look good, we're gonna, there is.
When you look at the amount of buildings we have, they could tie us up a long time.
It could. It could.
Yeah, yeah. go
To
ahead.
just mention your comment and reading over this, it's gonna take a while. If we pass this, but we know there's some conditions in
Well, we
place
have to
that
start
haven't been
somewhere.
met in years. And we're not gonna be able, if we pass this, to take care of it overnight. There's just some things that are really in there that really have some teeth to it, and we.
But again, you know, the concern, if you remember the presenter, what's our liability if somebody goes in these buildings and they get hurt?
Yeah, it's gonna be more
Then our
than that.
liability, because we haven't taken care of it.
I understand that.
It's complicated.
The length of time it takes to get to the point of where we could demolish it is not gonna start until we start.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
Yeah, there's gonna
And-
be changes in this anyway. I mean, this is just something to try to do.
And he will have the responsibility actually to placard the building and call it condemned. That's
You know,
part of,
putting up
that's
signs are gonna
108.
keep, putting up
108.
signs are gonna keep kids from going in there. stuff
Right,
like
they
that.
can condemn it and then they have a different, more expedited process. And for the demonstration that was shown before you, many of those buildings were not a surprise to us. Some of them are in ongoing projects and have already been visited by the building official and has been in process of becoming compliant. There are more that need to be fully investigated, but they were well familiar and well on the way with have met with property owners already, and we'll just leave that there. It's not like a lot of those were a surprise. So I know it,
I'm not-
look at it was kind of horrific, but until we get something in order where we can go out and take some action, and we have a official that can step out and take action on the behalf of the city, it's going to only get worse.
No, I'm not implying we're not doing it, because just right here, we're doing something, it's just gonna be a slow process. That's all.
Right, but I'm saying our building officials already been on the ground of a lot of those properties before they were ever brought to you.
Well, there's probably a lot of those that just not gonna apply to either. Because we're talking about are dangerous or and stuff like that. It's not just they don't look like you want them to look.
Okay, well, if we go through some of the requirements and the responsibilities, vacant land structures and how they're taken up, and not to cause blight or adversely affect the public health and safety. If you look at the exterior area of property that we will be allowed to investigate, you have sanitation.
What page are we on, Tracy?
We're on page 10, section 302, I'm sorry.
Couple behind you.
I'm sorry, I was trying to speed through.
No, it's all right. Graham.
Okay, the sanitation, and because one of our goals is to have good health, public safety, good sanitation. Your grading and drainage also is a factor that's a lot of time overlooked, but it can be very, erosion can be very damaging. We actually have one item we're working with here down in the south part of town. So this will be another avenue that you wouldn't really think of a code official, but it's going to be an invaluable place for him. Sidewalks and driveways, rodent harbage, exhaust vents, accessory structures. Now, defacement of property, this is actually a crime in Florida statutes. So, Chief Taylor, is that something that we need to leave within our code, handling the defacement of properties and just simply reporting it over, since it is a crime?
It's a crime, it's a statute that covers it.
Mm-hmm. So we wouldn't necessarily need to hold our official to it? Thank you, sir.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Davis.
In reference to that right there, when I was reading it, and in light of the graffiti writing that we've been having right here, because I told somebody, I'm not a lawyer or anything, I told them when I saw this, I said, well, I'm going to ask about that, but I told him you should go file a claim, file a suit against whoever was doing it to recoup if they saying that because the saying based here, you have to repair it yourself. Am I reading that correctly? The citizen now, if somebody defaces your building, we're saying you gotta clean it up yourself. And I'm looking for recourse for citizens where they can recoup their funds for doing this if they have to do it. Is there recourse for that, chief or lawyer?
No, sir.
May I
private.
speak to that, Mr. President?
Yes. Go ahead.
Under the criminal mischief statute, there is room for compensation of anything it would cost the owner to do that. It doesn't mean he's got to physically go get a sandblaster and go out there and sandblast and graffiti. He can hire somebody to do that. But he can apply for restitution in the court under the criminal mischief statute.
It can actually be part of the sentence.
Exactly.
Okay, I just wanna know because I had a couple of citizens.
Which is above and beyond this.
Yeah.
And we treat city damage the same way. When graffiti or vandalism occurs, we usually file charges and seek restitution for whatever we have in it for repairs.
Okay.
And we recover that cost.
Now, our question was, do we remove 302.8 from the property maintenance code, since it is handled under the criminal law?
Mr. President?
Yes, go ahead.
I would suggest that we don't remove it if we want to refer this to the Florida statutes that speak to that. We could do that, but it needs to be in here some
Okay.
way.
Okay.
It's an explanation.
Oh,
Yes, Mr. Hicks.
Mr. President, Teresa, in reference to 301.3, vacant structure and lands, all vacant structures and premises thereof or vacant land shall be maintained clean, safe, secure, and so forth, and so on. Now, is anywhere where we have a guideline, what we consider clean, what we consider, I know we have something about if grass grows or so many feet or whatever that, but is there any other place where, what some people call clean, we don't call clean.
Everybody
You
has their
know.
own definition.
So I don't know if we need more, Lori might be able to help us on that, whether we need a more defined, wording of what is clean, safe. I think we got safe and secure and sanitary pretty well covered in some of these others, but, clean, now, I don't know what, it's based on, based on the,
Subjective.
yeah, so we don't, I don't know, should it be?
I was gonna look and see if they actually put it in the definition, the general provisions of definition.
Here's a picture.
If we
of-
got clean. Well, generally, I would think it would be free from trash and debris. I don't see it in here under,
I think we should address that. That's the only thing I'm saying, we should address it in a little bit more detail. That's my feeling, because, like I say, what some people say you consider clean, I might not consider it clean. So I think we need to get a little bit more into that. I don't know what wording you would use or,
so a wall that is painted thoroughly with good, clean graffiti might not be clean.
Well, it says it's, the end part of it helps define it, so as not to cause a blighting problem or adversely affect the public health or safety.
Okay. We'll put a definition in chapter 2 and see if we can work that out. Okay?
Thank you.
Mr. President, I got a question on that.
Oh, you go ahead and ask Mr. Blocker.
So many things, Dave, I go back several places prior to this. What I would like to make sure that every sentence, every article in this document, we are not taking these code officials' interpretations and opinions. I want it to be able to be backed up by Florida statute, period. 'Cause we got in trouble too many times on the interpretations and opinions. Let's put it down here in black and white.
Yep, lost my place. We were asking for your opinion under modifications, and we were asking under your duties, 1041, it's the code official is hereby authorized and directed to enforce the provisions of this code. The code official shall have the authority to render interpretations of this code, to adopt policies and procedures in order to clarify the application of such provisions. Such interpretations, policies, and procedures shall be in compliance with the intent and purpose of this code. Such policies and procedures shall not have the effect of waiving requirements specifically provided for in this code.
Per statute.
No, that's per 1041
I
in
know,
your
but-
duties.
That's still going back to individual interpretations and opinions. It's great.
I can see if we can be a little more specific in there.
Would you please?
Because it says that policies and procedures shall not have the effect of waiving any requirements specifically provided in this code. So, the official is going to have to prepare policies and procedures in order to effectively utilize your code. And those will be brought forth and discussed and accepted, or not accepted, tweaked, or whatever.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Hayes.
I just have a question, and it's related to what Mr. Blanca said, for it's a gray area. Now, for as whenever this is presented in its final form, how is this basically approved? Is it approved by our attorney or Tallahassee's Shirley them or whoever?
We will send it to Mr. Hawley and to Mr. Shirley in an ordinance format. It will be adopted by ordinance. This will become part of your code.
Yeah, I understand. I just want to make sure that the gray areas that somebody that legal looks at it to make sure they can inform us. This could be a gray area. You need to tighten it up or whatever. That's
Right.
basically.
Yeah, this hasn't been reviewed by our legal yet. It was taken directly from what has been adopted and tried and been in court cases from the International Property Maintenance Council there. So that's what we're trying to do, is get it defined so that legal can look at it, and what they're approving is what you want them to be looking at. Not that they approve this and then you change this chapter to only try to approve it again. So when this is finished in a good format, we will submit it to legal. Legal will proof it up, tighten up loopholes. They may add some other criteria, they may take some out. And then it'll be back before you in an ordinance format. Okay. We were section 303, swimming pools, spas, and hot tubs. And this generally follows along the same guidelines as the Florida Building Code. If we come down section 304, exterior structure, it generally wants the exterior of the structure to remain in good repair, structurally sound, and sanitary, so as not to pose a threat to public health, safety, or welfare. And it handles how unsafe conditions would be handled. It also goes through siding, structure members, foundation systems, exterior walls, roofing or roof components, flooring, veneers, cornices, trim, wall faces, overhang extensions, It also gets into, to any, in the commercial realm, canopies, marquees, signs, awnings, fire escapes, or any standalone piping. Exterior stairs, decks, porches, balconies, handrails, guardrails, chimneys, cooling tanks, smoke stacks, and it will touch on all of those as far as being safe and secure and in the best interest of the public safety. Any protective treatments, it allows to, but not limited to, doors and doorways. This helps protect elements from decay by either painting or some type of protective covering treatment. And so this is going to be a guideline for that particular use. Structural members should be free from any deterioration, and a structural engineer would be a judge of that.
Hold on a second, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
Aren't we getting into building codes?
Yes, sir.
Shouldn't that be separate from this? We're not gonna condemn a property or try to tear it down because somebody doesn't have enough steps in their stairs outside or something. I mean,
No, he's not looking for the number of steps.
No,
He's-
I'm just,
he's
that's a poor
looking
example. I'm just saying that we're not going to condemn property because they're not obeying building codes. That's a whole nother separate department and set of codes.
True, okay. You've got exterior stairways. He has to know how to inspect those, because if the metal has loosened from the building, if there's missing steps there, if there's rust there that a person could start up and the metal fail, that's what your official would be looking at. Is it safe? Is it, if somebody wants to run up those stairs, are they gonna fall through the fifth one up? Is the handrail gonna break off because it's rusted in two? That's the things that he's going to be looking at. He's not going to look at it as, are these steps 18 inches apart? That's what your building official does. Measure the rise and the depth. Your code official is going to look at, is this metal safe? Is it corroded through? Does it have a handrail?
Is he also gonna be complaint driven?
No, sir. No, sir. This guy or lady will be cruising the city. But he
There
has
seems to
to
be-
have the ability to look at your exterior structure in order to determine if this is safe, is it sound. It doesn't matter if it's, is it rotting? Okay, take your exterior walls. Are they anchored? Or are they not supporting the elements? Or are they free of holes, cracks, breaks, rotting material? That's the stuff that he's going to be looking for.
Okay, but it just seems to me like we're putting a lot of stuff in this that could be addressed somewhere else.
Well, your building official does look at these things, but he can't go out and look and see if there's just, if it looks good, but it's really rotten. Have you ever seen a building that actually looked good? They've painted it, but if you put your hand on the wood, it sinks.
I pay a company $250 to come poke a screwdriver in my post and all, every year. And
Yeah,
I keep them painted and everything, but
yeah.
they don't
Well, that's
have an
what this
X-ray
is.
machine.
This he's looking and he's determining. Says if you go back and read it in, it says the following conditions shall be determined to be unsafe and shall be repaired or replaced in compliance with the Florida Building Code, and they use the International Existing Building Code as required for existing buildings. So what he's doing is they're making sure that that building as it stands is safe and secure. You've got to be able to judge that structural integrity of the building components, or determine if it's actually needs some help, if the members need to be replaced, and then go from there.
Thanks, Mr. President.
And that was where it gets down to where in 3043, structural members free from deterioration, if they're capable and can safely support and deal with dead or live loads. Foundation walls. Are the foundation walls maintaining plumb and free from open cracks and breaks, and have been kept in condition so as to prevent the entry of rodents and other pests? Exterior walls shall be free from holes, breaks, loose, rotting material, and maintain waterproof and properly surface coated required to prevent deterioration. Roofs and drainage. Roof and flashing shall be sound, tight, and not have defects as to admit rain. Roof drainage shall be adequate to prevent dampness or deterioration in the walls and the interior portion of a structure. Roof drains, gutters, and downspouts shall maintain good repair and free from obstacles. Roof water shall not be discharged in a manner that it creates a public nuisance. Decorative features, that's mostly if they're just safe and in good repair. And the overhang extension, those are mostly in your commercial buildings. They also need to be maintained. Awnings need to be in safe repair, the metal that holds them up. You go to stairways, decks, porches, and balconies. Every exterior stairways, deck, porch, or balcony are all, now I'm not even going to begin to say that because I will mutilate that up. Attached herein, shall be maintained structurally sound and in good repair. Chimney and towers, we're not so inundated with chimneys and towers here in our area. However, we do need to keep it in there because there are some fireplaces in our area. The handguard and rails, that's necessary, like I say, for a lot of them are made out of the wrought iron that rusts and corrodes. They go down with the windows and the screens, doors, guards to basement windows, building security. That all kind of ties together. Doorways and windows. That would be sort of left to the determination of how tight you want to make your doorways and your windows. So we would like to bring you some further investigation and further suggestions on our doorways and windows. Other than they'll be safe, they'll be not broken. I don't think we want to get into the locking mechanism or anything like that, although they do in this particular code. And I'm sure as you read through, y'all are going to have some suggestions for that as to the areas that we mark out for that. Interior, most of it goes with the unsafe conditions. And most of it generally runs along the same type as we just read for the exterior. It's mostly your structural members, your stairways, your foundations systems, and a lot of things, handrails. Sometimes those are not kept painted and they will rust and corrode. Okay, and the different components, if we go into 306, the components of a structure that needs to be maintained in good repair, structurally sound and in a sanitary condition. And that abides in with your soils, concrete, aluminum, your masonry, your steel, wood, any of your building components that might need to be looked at or repaired. And they actually, handrails and guardrails are actually so important. They've actually pulled it out in 307 because that's things that are easily overlooked. 308 goes through your pest elimination, which infestation, owners, single occupancy, multiple occupancy, and who would be the responsible party there. And that actually concludes up chapter 308.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Hayes.
I'd like to propose at least a 5-minute recess if possible. She's been up here a long time talking,
Yeah.
and we've been sitting here a long time, and I have to get up. I don't know
And,
about everybody else, but I.
yeah, we can clear
Thank
a
you.
5-minute recess.
Thank you, Mr. Hanks.
Well, time to play. We're on the home stretch now. Oh.
Okay, gentlemen, chapter 4. And these get into a little more specific and a little more whether or not we want to, how much of this we want to include. So,
Yeah, if I could just comment, because Mr. Faircloth was bringing that up too. It looks to me like we've gotten into where people are gonna be coming to, if it's not complaint driven, they can come in anybody's house and start checking your stairwells and whether you have locks on your windows and that kind of stuff. It just seems to me like we've just gotten a little too deep here, but.
no,
I doubt you could found a house that didn't have something.
actually, what, in order to spark the interest of a code official or to even be, qualify for his time, he's going to have to notice some type of something that's wrong with the structure. Why is that step, halfway up this step? Well, that's because the metal holding it
Yeah.
has rusted away and it's hanging there.
Yeah.
There's going to be something that has to trigger it. They're not just going around invading people's privacy and looking. It's going to have to be something that draws the attention that looks unsafe.
I know what you're saying, but just looking at what we're getting into right now, the minimum room widths, occupancy limitations, is that something that we want these people to
Well,
be
we,
going
Well,
into
it's in-
measuring rooms?
section 4 is titled light, ventilation, and occupancy
That's what I'm saying.
limitations. That's not even related. That's like Doug's Barbecue and Tire Store.
Actually, occupancy is a very important portion of what needs to be actually looked at. There's been several that have been, well, as a matter of fact, the fire marshal and I talked today about a group home. Of course, they had to go in and actually force the people out and force the building closed because they had so many occupants living in this one small structure.
But it sounds like we have the solution to that already. You just told me that the fire chief took care of that.
No, the fire marshal and
The fire marshal, my bad.
the building official and the code enforcement supervisor took care of that.
Yeah.
So
So we
there-
need so we need another person involved then.
Keep in mind, this is going to become your backbone of your code enforcement.
All right, let's move
So-
on. Let's move on.
Mr. President,
Okay.
let's move
Yeah,
on
yeah,
with that.
go ahead, Ms. Moore.
All right, let me ask this, Teresa. Right now, we have a fire marshal in this city, correct?
Yes, sir, we do.
All right. Tom Dooley over here goes to the fire marshal and says, hey, I think there's a violation in this structure. Who do I go to? Who can get this checked out if there is a violation? The fire marshals, what's their responsibility, Tony?
Life safety.
Nice saving.
And he could go anywhere whatsoever. Then he goes and makes that inspection, and his determination then, that information should be passed to who?
Building official.
True. Then the building official go check him out, then comes down to code enforcement.
Okay, sir, your code official is going to have some of the same qualifications as your building official.
Who drafted this document? Personnel, who did that? You and LPA, or who?
In result, it come directly out of your property maintenance
This
code.
went right,
and
all
it-
this.
and it was modified for the city of Crestview.
But who were the people in the city of Crestview that pulled out what we have in our packet? I want to know the individuals' names that drafted
Well then,
this.
sir, since I'm the head of that department, you'd have to put my name on that.
Only?
I don't work alone, but I am the end responsibility of what you've got before you.
Okay. Was there 3 or 4 people? Answer me that.
There was an entire department there.
Okay? All I have, Mr. President.
Thank you. Go ahead, Teresa.
Okay, like I say, these are a little on the, that's included in your maintenance code because they're a full meal deal maintenance code. It's your lights, ventilation, and your occupancy limitation. Our interest in this, as far as a code official, would dwell within your occupancy limitations. And that is more or less where, in the city of Crestview is where they tend to have a group type environment where they simply rent rooms out to whoever and charge what they want to. And I'm not saying it's they sure don't come down and get a business tax receipt from Ms. Roy to do this. But every building has an occupational limit. Is that true?
Yeah, true.
That is true. And these occupational sizes and all that have been quoted here are very similar to the occupation sizes from the fire, correct?
Yes.
So it's more or less the same information printed in front. If an official in the course of his duty comes across a structure that is occupied by 20 people when it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom structure, he may want to say, hey, I need to either contact the fire marshal. Somebody needs to know about this. So that's why it's in here, because there is occupancy limitations. Now, if we choose to remove that, then we accept the other. If you're not granting him the authority to look at that, if he comes across the structure with the 20 occupancies in the 2-bedroom house, he'll say, it's crowded in here. And that'll be the limit of it.
I wasn't questioning whether or not we should have occupancy limitations. I just don't see how it fits in with light and ventilation.
I don't either, sir, but that's the chapter it was in. Because these are elements that are on the interior. And in actuality, there's not many things that you have to have in order to be able to live in a structure. I had always assumed you needed water and you needed heat. I thought that was the two things that you had to provide for life safety. But I have learned that that is not so. You don't need heat and you don't need water. If you have children involved living in that structure without water, did you know that the DCF will provide water for those children that are there? They will bring water supply to them. They do not need running water, which I find that horrifying. So there's a lot of things in researching this that has, come to realization that not everybody has the same opportunities as others. And like I say, that's the way it was formed in lighting, ventilation, and occupancy. And in Chapter 5, they discuss plumbing, facilities, and fixture requirements. And it goes in your dwelling units, and it also touches into your hotels and your public facilities. And they do drinking facilities, employee facilities, and down to where the toilet rooms and the bathrooms are provided, and what type of passageway they really should have there. You also have Section 504, plumbing systems and fixtures. All plumbing fixtures shall be properly installed and maintained in a safe and sanitary manner, working order, free from obstruction, leaks, defects, and capable of performing the function for which said plumbing fixtures are designed for. It goes on to go into your water systems. And it briefly touches about contamination, supply, and water heating facilities. 506 touches into your sanitary drainage system and your grease inceptors and such for commercial. It also, 507 touches into your storm drainage, just mostly your roof areas and what would be there as far as your home itself. Chapter 6 begins mechanical and electrical requirements. It goes down through your heating and heating system, mechanical systems, then 604 begins with your electrical facilities, services, your system hazards, also abatement for electrical hazards associated with water exposure, which it does have provisions in the sections that will govern the repair and replacement of electrical systems and equipments that have been exposed to water. And then it gives you a detail of this particular electrical equipment that it's discussing. It also covers the abatement of electrical hazard associated with fire exposure. And then goes down to your electrical receptacles and luminaries, which if they would be looking for if they were properly installed. Duct systems, it just needs to be maintenance free. Not sure that's something that would be relevant to an official, but Chapter 7 goes with your fire safety requirements, which work hand in hand with your fire code. So, and that's kind of where we left off at. There are some other entities in the property maintenance code, some that would not be relevant to us as from a code official. And it gets a little into your building official. I do have the legal aspects for the Florida's Association for Code Enforcement. It's done by Gary Glassman. This is like a level 1 training. I think it will be interesting. It's eye-opening, just for briefing.
You have enough?
You want one? I do have enough. I just picked up a handful. I thought I picked up 7.
Got some homework coming.
This is gonna be your homework.
So I just told Bill he had homework. Oh, he didn't get it, huh? You don't get homework. You teach his pet.
Thank you. Is your all or no, I ain't put it back in the library. Is there any direct questions or instructions or for us to carry back?
Gentlemen, any other comments, questions? Yes, Mr. Cox.
Yeah, I want to thank Ms. Gaylord for, and her department for a very thorough document. And we need some redundancy, and we have it in different sections, because there's people that'll always be looking for wiggle room, so. But we've needed this for a long time, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments?
I echo Mr. Cox's
Yeah.
comments.
Yeah, absolutely right. You did it's a lot of work here. We thank you for doing that.
Mr. President.
Yeah, go ahead.
I still think this is unneeded redundancy. I think it could stop at chapter 3, because all this other stuff is in other codes and ordinances, isn't it?
For the code official?
I don't know about the rest of the council, but my main idea, my main task that I wanted done was to, like Ms. Simpson said at the previous meeting, is to just clean up all these dilapidated, unsanitary, nuisance, dangerous structures and properties in the city. What size nails they use and whether or not they put flashing on it and all that stuff is not necessary to me to go out and find these partially burned out buildings and with the weeds 6 feet tall and cars up on blocks and torn down fences and no front doors and where criminal mischievers are there trying to burn the place down or use it for a canvas to paint stuff on. I just think this other stuff is too intrusive for what our purpose is. I don't know if anybody agrees with me, but those are my thoughts.
Let me give you a what if.
Okay.
You have a building and the roof trusses have failed and they have collapsed inside. Is that a dilapidated, blighted building?
Looks like it to me if I'm a
Looks like
code
it to you?
officer.
How do I prove that? How do I prove that? How do I prove it failed? Did they use?
Well, a
Did
picture-
they use improper nails? Did they use the wrong size? Did they not attach the supporting beam? Did they not do it with the proper metal bolts? Did they not do the anchors? That's why the details are important.
That doesn't concern me. It's unsightly, it's dangerous and unsanitary, it's inviting vagrants, it's inviting vermin. And I would like to see it either torn down or rebuilt. Now, when the code officer is riding down the street and most of the houses' roofs look like this and he passes one that looks like this, then it's apparent that the trusses have failed. Who knows why? I don't really care. That can be taken care of when they build the next one. What I'm wanting to do is get rid of that one so that it doesn't fall in on somebody.
What that code officer has to do is to prove without a shadow of a doubt that that structure has failed, why it's failed, and get the court to allow him to have it removed. Details is what builds his case. He has to prove it legally before they will allow him to destroy that building. That's why there's details and there is what seems to be as intrusive or unrelated information, because he has to build a legal case in order to get the building removed, get the building repaired.
If this building, home, or house, is certainly not a home, a house has been sitting there in this condition and worsening, every year a little more of it falls in, and it's been there for 12, 15 years, does it really matter why it's in this condition? It's probably in that condition because nobody maintained it, not necessarily because it didn't have storm clips or longer nails. And at this point, when it's a dangerous nuisance building for children, it's a draw for children or somebody to go in there and it falls in on them and kills them, the property owner is going to be liable. And
Yes,
at that time, the parents of that kid doesn't care if it wasn't properly built in 1940. And the court should not. I would like to see case law on that, where you have to prove what size nails they used. And what if we can't prove? What if they used proper hurricane clips and bracing in the trusses and the right size nails, but it still fell in? What then? What do we do?
It becomes human error. Maybe they didn't, you've seen,
So
there's
then-
cases
then
where
if we
they
can-
go out and put the roof, even in our building. There's cases where they'll go out and they'll shingle the roof, and in their haste, they miss the trusses that they're supposed to be shingling into. You will simply see.
See it all the time.
You see nails
That's
that
what
are
code-
not,
That's what
that are
code
not.
inspectors are for, when he goes out there and inspects each stage of that building.
Do you know how many structures are constructed without building permits? It's scary. Do you know how many, how much work is actually done without permitting, proper permits? And when the hurricane season went through here, you'd be surprised how many roofs are improperly put in, or how many of them that will not pass code.
Do you know how many stop signs are run and how many cars are speeding out there on the interstate?
Speeding on the interstate, almost every one of them.
Laws are for honest people,
Yes.
okay? And so, yeah, I suspect there's a lot of buildings are gonna be built without permits and so forth. That's why we need code inspectors to ride around and look, say, hey, wait, something looks different here than it did last week. I'm going to check and see if they have a permit. But let me give you a what if. What if we find a structure that has fallen in and we go give a citation or warning or something to the property owner, and he takes us to court, and we find out that all the proper nails were used, and each 2x6 and 2x4 were hit with the decking nails and staples or whatever, and the shingles were on right, and everything was done just perfect. Does that mean we're not going to get to do something about that dangerous structure?
Well, if everything was done properly and the wood itself was treated, and everything was built properly, how did it collapse?
It wasn't maintained.
Well, then by not being maintained, you have allowed either your timber to rot, your metal attachments to rust. Something has happened under that would cause
If the
that.
timber's rotted and the metal rusted, then the size of the nails and improper installment of those nails is irrelevant. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah.
And thank you, Teresa. I know you did a lot of work on this, and I appreciate that, but I just personally think it's just a little bit bulky.
We'll have, Mr. Fairclough, and I'll get to you in just a second, is that we're getting it through this the first time you at the workshop, and we actually get it back with any recommendations we made. That's when we're gonna take the vote, and we'll have the opportunity to debate what section should stay in there, which one shouldn't. So, at this point, I mean, it's good identifying it, though. Ms. Blocker, go ahead.
Teresa,
Yes, sir.
I'm not picking on you. I'm gonna say this, and I'm very bold about it. I've had 4 professional people come to me and told me after this has been drafted. Of course, I've had this here IDMC book, all this. I've been in the building business 60+ years. But it said what bothers me about this, Mr. Blocker, is that only the city of Crestview has had 1 professional involved in drafting this, and the rest of them is novices. So
Well,
I'll leave it at that.
I will pass that along to the board at the International Council of Property Management.
But I know it so much and I appreciate what you're doing, but let's don't have to go and do it over again. That's my bottom question. Don't
Well-
do it over again.
Well, what suggestion you have for me then? I should
Let's
drop
get
it
right
as it
the
is?
first time.
Well, sir, I have it in front of you. Tell me what suggestions you want
Let's
to
go
do it.
back to interpretations and opinions. How many professional people did y'all request to help draft this?
We worked with the International Board of Property Maintenance and followed their guidelines, their productions, their training, and their documentation.
Almost the statistic says that anywhere from 37 to 43% of them people never put the boot on the ground. They do it on their desk. End of story.
Yeah, Mr. Hayes, you had a comment or question?
Yeah, just a comment. I know this is just initial, you know. I didn't read all this, but I looked at it, and I know a lot of
World
stuff is
information.
just coming directly from here to here. This is used worldwide,
Yes, sir.
and it's been accepted worldwide. So whether we have one professional or 25, if we're taking it direct from here, all we can do is go back to the international and talk to those people, regardless of what the people around here say. Now, I would suggest maybe they get this and read it themselves. Whoever might question, say, we need more professionals at that, but give them a copy of this, let them read it, let them see what's in here, and then make a comparison. But the thing, what I'm looking at, we've had issues here for years. We're working towards that, which I think is great for the council here. We're working towards that. Everything's not going to fit everything, and like I said, we're looking out for really our citizens. You know, our job is to maintain safety and security for them. That's what we got fire and police department. Our job is to give them the equipment to do their job. If we start limiting them, and what if? And we can. I don't like what ifs, but it's good. It's a good theory. But I'm sure that the person, male or female or two or three, because I'm looking at this and I'm saying this is a massive undertaking for anybody to even start on this. If I was in the position, the things that I'm going to start looking at right away is safety and security. Now, about nails and all that kind of stuff, I don't think they'll have time to look at that, unless it just happens. But I think the person, whoever is tasked with this, whatever we approve, is going to be so tasked. To me, I'm looking at about a 3-year job, at least a 3-year job to get it where it's presentable enough. That still doesn't, but that's just the first 3 or 4 years where they're going to be tasked every day, and I was telling you right, this is going to be labor intense,
Very.
paperwork crazy, and people might say, well, you're not moving fast enough. There's only so far you can move, and to give the citizens fair opportunities, you got to have that time space in there. So I'm hoping that we would look at this, that we not put restrictions on the safety and security for our citizens. Some things in here might need to be changed, and we can address that. But I like to say I appreciate the effort, because this has been a mass undertaking.
Thank you, sir.
I see you out here on Saturdays and Sundays when other people don't, but I know what you're doing, and you need to stop it. I'm doing, Mr. President.
All right, Mr. Cox, you have a comment and a question?
Yeah, I want to restate, this is an extensive working document, maybe a minor tweak or two, but what more do we need? Also, I know I've reviewed online Fort Walton Beach's code. Much of this is similar to that, and a number of months ago, Teresa provided us with hard copies of Panama City Beach's code. Much of that these codes are very similar to this document. So what's the problem?
Yep.
My question is, how long till we have a finished product for adoption? I think this is close, very close.
More comments?
Don't kick the can down the road anymore.
Okay, let's move on to section 6B, please. Well, you're just going to.
Okay. I had to look to see what it was. Sorry. Okay. Outstanding items, just a reminder, we have a CRA meeting on November 2nd.
First, we have a workshop on October 30th.
We have, on October 30th, we have a charter workshop. I've had 2 people that have requested notebooks, so I'll be happy to provide those.
Was I one of those?
Yes, sir, you were one of them.
Sure. I don't know.
Yes, sir. I think it's a good idea to have the notebook, but
Yeah, including me.
you want to be included also? Okay.
Mr. President, why don't you just give all of us one? Then nobody can say they have an excuse we didn't see it.
In the story.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah, that's fine.
okay, we've got that.
Okay.
We've got, I was gonna let you in, Publix will have its grand opening on November the 8th. Wendy's very, shortly afterwards. We have Popeyes in the works. We have, we mentioned the Chick-fil-A? Go ahead and mention, okay, Chick-fil-A, yep. We do have inquiry and actually have had a first FDOT approval for the Dairy Queen. I, for one, am very excited about that.
So that's public now, right?
Yes. Yes.
And that's up across from Wendy's, right?
It's gonna be across from Wendy's. Yes, sir. I'm very happy about it.
I am
It's-
too.
We have spoke with a gentleman along the Valley Road area. We will bring for y'all annexation. It's a 50-acre tract. 10 of it's already in the city. They will be annexing the other 40 acres in. We have touched base with the people on the 36 acres to the west of Davison Middle School. They're planning at least 150 units there. I think that's off the top of my head. I think that's what I had to tell y'all. I think that was all of them. So,
Well, thank you so much for standing up there for the last 2.5 hours. Whatever it's been. Yes, Mr. Walker, you.
I want to address Teresa as one, but I've been working with the management of Publix since they started their business, since I've been in the business, building business all these years. And they said their superintendent up there and that his people has built structures over the 13 southeastern United States, and the city of Crestview, Florida has been the best group of people to work with of any city municipality, and they want to take their hats off to our city, and especially our building inspector.
Good.
So thank y'all.
no, they did. They have been exceptionally friendly and easy to work with.
True.
They were.
That's a really good company.
It is.
It really is. I've dealt with them over the years, with United Way, and boy, they're just, not just here, all over the place, Publix, it's just a great company.
Yes.
It's a great company, and they have had one of the most professional contractors to work with. They were very easy. And no, we weren't bribed by the fried chicken they always brought, but
Okay, at this time, I'm going to call from comments from the audience. Anybody in the audience would like to speak to us, please keep in mind, 3 minutes. Mr. Cal?
Couple of quick questions. On page 2, item 102.8, power or the requirements not covered by code. Requirements necessary for strength, stability, or proper operation of existing fixture, structure, or equipment, or for public safety, health, or general welfare not specifically covered by this code shall be determined by the code official. That's carte blanche. Think about it.
Interpretation.
That's how I read it as a,
And I
Reader.
think, and I think that's kind of the things that we were saying, is we have to make sure we're not subjective here.
right. Okay, page 6, demolition. Reboarding the building up for future repair shall not extend beyond 1 year unless approved by the code official. Last Saturday, I spent about 5 hours videotaping for future Z-Files, a whole bunch of those things that were shown to you in a printed form not long ago. So we're gonna share that with a couple of thousand more people to know about it. But 1 year to leave it boarded up? I don't,
I'm
that
not-
sounds like you're
Would you
off.
give me that section again, Cal? I can't
Yeah,
find it.
it's, page
I got
6,
page 6.
section 110 under demolition.
Okay, 110.
The last sentence, boarding the building up for future repair shall not
Oh,
extend
okay.
beyond 1 year.
Year.
Come on. 90
I might-
days, maybe, 180 days, that's
I
a
might be
lot
doing
even.
that. I might be doing that.
I'm just wondering. And then, anybody here that deals with selling insurance of any kind? I just got to wondering, when you talk about the defamation of property, defacement of property, does typical business or homeowner's insurance cover those kind of damages to their home or their business? Or is that an exclusion you can't buy on your homeowners or your business
I know it's not
insurance?
on mine. I don't know about anybody else's.
Hmm?
I know it's not on mine, but I don't know if you can buy it or not.
Now, just three quick questions I had. Otherwise, I think it's a pretty good place to get started. And whenever you're going to actually put that code official to work, and I don't know whether the magistrate thing, but from what I've watched and the few times you've had code board meetings or things I've heard about them, or board of adjustment meetings even, they're not real successful operations for getting something accomplished.
Thank you, Cal. Anybody else in public? Welcome back, man.
Thank you so
I
much.
gotta give you 3 minutes now, because we're hungry.
As soon as I get it, start that. I was listening to, Gal here talking. Can a house be empty without having insurance on it? Can you get insurance as if it's your home? You're not living in it, like maybe I have to move. Will they insurance my house in the state of Florida?
I don't see why not.
I don't know.
I'm not an
I don't
expert.
think so.
That's an insurance agent.
Yeah,
I don't think so, huh?
You can get landlord, but that's only if somebody's renting.
Yeah, the renter. But I mean, if you got your house and you haven't rented, you move out, you lose your insurance in the state of Florida. They don't rent it to you, okay? Okay, now, that's what I wanted to ask that right fast, because this about to happen to me, and I was about to find out if I don't rent my house out right fast, I lose my home insurance that I've been paying over year. So, okay, another thing,
Mr. President,
Yes.
I might address that because it just came up with my mother-in-law's property. Yeah, if nobody's staying in the house, they're not gonna give insurance.
not gonna give you no insurance.
Somebody's gotta reside in the
Yeah.
property,
Wow.
because
Got
if,
to.
if not, there's a number of factors that can come
That could
up.
happen that
That's
you
not,
couldn't
that-
control.
they're not gonna cover that.
Yeah.
Somebody breaks in your house, decides they wanna cook on the floor,
That's it.
or whatever, yeah, so that's the policy,
Okay, all
according to my wife.
right,
Some companies, yes.
all right, go ahead, man.
Okay.
We got that.
Okay, the next thing I want to know, and I was listening to what she was saying for the code enforcement, it looked so bad down in our neighborhood. I got back here and I've been gone on and off a year. It looked, she's right, it was code, there's no code inspector, nothing for 2013, what she said, okay. 2013, I believe it, because it looks terrible down there. You can't even see some of them houses the people staying in. Does it cover trees? They got bushes and trees. They got to almost crawl to get to their door. That looks terrible. And we used to keep it a little cleaner. Go up Bay Street. It looks terrible on the right side of Bay. That looks terrible. Okay? Or go on down Etna a little bit more. It looks terrible all over Crestview down there. And I said, this is terrible. It's terrible right on the corner off from my house on Etna. Because when I was home in there, I was up cutting trees. I was climbing trees, cutting them myself. So the whole thing looks terrible down there. Everywhere I look, it looks terrible. So I'm happy to see that, and she will talk, so bless her heart, she did a good job in talking, I'm telling you. But anyway, I'm happy to get back to see that y'all is trying to do something. Do something, I don't care what it is, but do something about how bad it looks down there. Across from Mr. Hayes' house, you can't hardly see the house next, right across the street from him. The trees, and they was bushes. They done growed up to be big trees. That looked terrible. Take a walk down there sometime. Take a trip down and then just ride around. It looks terrible. It looks terrible.
May, thank you, we're working on it.
You working on
We're
it,
working
and that is good, and I thank y'all for it. And y'all know what's all happening in our community. And I got to leave back out of town, but I'm trying to have a meeting with our children in our community to do a talk with my children. And y'all know children everywhere belongs to me. And I know some of the information is getting out slow, but it's getting there. And they all know that I want them to meet me on McDonald Street between Etna and School. I already got it out, and a lot of the churches know it, and the churches who don't know it, they will know it. That's all I'm gonna tell you, and show up at that meeting if you can. It doesn't matter.
Give me the location.
October,
date, time.
right where you was, it's Sunday, October the 28th at 10 a.m.
Well, what
And I ain't
time?
gonna hold you but about 2 hours.
Where were we last night?
Well, yes, where you was last night, right in front of a church. That church was at last night. It's gonna be out in the streets. I want it to be, what you call off? I want it to be where no traffic, to block off. That's it. I'm trying to talk fast, cause see, I've been letting y'all answer my question. Yeah, I'm trying to talk fast for you now,
Okay,
Mr.
man,
Whitman.
we gotta go.
Yeah, I'm trying to talk real fast so I won't miss nothing. And if y'all know the little lady what used to sit back there with her puzzle, Billy Ray, she died Saturday. So,
did she?
yes, she
I
did.
had not
So-
heard that.
Yeah, she died Saturday. So I just want to let she was there. She was here just about every council meeting. She was trying to make it, but she died Saturday. Yeah.
Give me
And I
the,
think I got just about everything on my paper. But I'm just so happy to hear
Okay,
that
give
y'all
me-
trying to check the stores downtown. Cause I have walked in them stores. They're beautiful outside, but you're walking on ground inside. So thank y'all for
Thank you.
looking. Thank you.
All right, any other comments from the public? If not, meeting is adjourned. Open house now.